Welcome to LOA Today. Walt Thiessen and life coach Cindy Chavez here. Today is Wednesday, April the 4th, 2018. A little after 8 a.m. Eastern Time, your first daily dose of happy for the day. Got off to a little bit of a late start, but we're up and running. That was my fault. I was doing something that was actually kind of interesting and fun, and I said, oh my goodness, it's 8. We got to get going.
Well, I'm glad you're here.
I am glad, too. I'm glad to be here. It's good. So how you doing? I mean, have you had anything interesting or fun or exciting happen in the last 24 hours?
Well, I did my mirror work, and I've actually done it twice.
Oh, no kidding.
I did it yesterday right after the podcast, and then today I did it before. I'm kind of following your lead of, if I do this first thing in the morning, then I won't forget it.
Yeah. Yeah, that does help.
It's definitely not something that I feel like I'm going to try to avoid. I've done it before, so I'm kind of over the, awkwardness and like, this is
good.
ridiculous phase.
Good.
But with me, it'll just be that, I'll be lying in bed and think, oh no, I think I forgot. So I decided to hit it first thing because I knew you were going to ask me about it. So I'm excited. It's going well. I just spent maybe 10 seconds, not a prolonged period of time, but
well, yeah, that's just it. You don't have to spend a lot of time on it. That's the thing that amazes me. You really don't have to spend a lot of time. I mean,
well, I think I was amazed yesterday when you said it. I think in my head that it's been for you now 46, 47 days,
right?
And hearing you talk about it and be so excited about it and have such great results, in my head I just kept thinking that you must be spending 10, 15 minutes.
Not at all.
So yesterday when you said, Cindy, you know how long I usually spend? How long? Well, 30 seconds. I was like blown away. What? Because it sounds ridiculous, right? To tell someone, hey, I started doing something that's made a huge improvement in my overall quality of well-being, and it's taking me 30 seconds a day.
It does sound crazy. It also kind of reinforces for me. I mean, what if I were to actually take the time to do 10 to 15 minutes a day? What would happen if I did that? Because look what 30 seconds does.
Right? Oh, my goodness.
I mean, it took like 20 days before I noticed an improvement. If I had spent 10 to 15 minutes on a day, would I have noticed an improvement in 3 days? Maybe. I don't know.
Yeah, it's hard to know. It's hard to tell. I think there's something to be said for... that's funny. I didn't connect it with this, but I say this to clients all the time.
Oh.
And that is small, consistent action. That's what brings the success.
This is true.
Because sometimes we get all fired up about something and we want to go great guns on it, and then just think if you would have said, I'm going to do an hour a day, after 3 or 4 days, you would have said like, oh yeah, I can't do this anymore. I'm just too busy or whatever. Right.
Sure.
And that's what happens with people. They start going to the gym for 2 hours, every single day, or they want to make a big leap. And so they start making these really extreme moves.
Oh yeah.
And usually they're just not sustainable. And so I'm consistently saying to people, it's the small actions that you don't give up on that bring the results. So I don't know about that, but who knows? You might be able to like fly by now if you
It's possible. I don't know. I can't honestly say I feel the drive to do it, so I'm not ready to do it just yet. And I don't want to jeopardize what you've been pointing out, the importance of maintaining the steady daily habit of doing it. Because that's the thing that makes the big difference. I noticed that when I started doing my walks. And my wife marvels at the fact that actually lately I haven't because of the weather we've been dealing with. But normally when I'm doing my walks, I do them every day, and she marvels at that. And literally all I did in order to get the whole thing started was to do it every day, even though I was starting with walking like a block. I didn't walk very far my very first day, some 10 years ago or whatever it was, when I started doing it. I walked a very short distance, but the next day I walked a longer distance. And the next day I walked a longer distance. Not because I was pushing myself, but just because I wanted to. And because I kept it in the I wanted to range, I kept wanting to do it the next day, and the next day, and the next day.
That's a good point, too, the keeping it in the range of something you want to do, because it probably moves out of that range much quicker when we start making it too hard.
Yes, exactly right.
Too long.
That's what stops us. Yeah, too
Time and
long.
money. Those are the two excuses everybody uses, right? For everything. It's like, I don't have enough time. I don't have enough money. And so at least with time, that's easy to control. If we do mirror work for 30 seconds instead of 10 minutes, if we take a walk around the block instead of saying, I'm going to walk 3 miles every day, make it easy. Let it be easy.
Yeah, I agree completely. And the only thing that's left at that point, because once you've removed the excuse, well, I walked too far, so I just can't do this anymore. Once you remove that excuse, it's like, oh, drat, there are no more excuses. Well, I guess I got to do this thing.
Right? So that's awesome. Well, I didn't realize that either, that when you started taking your walks, you were walking a short.
Oh, really short. Yeah, it was very short. And I got back and I was so proud of myself. And I woke up the next day and I said, that's the best I could do, really? And so I was determined to go farther the next day.
I'm going to do it again. And
I'll
I'm
do
going
it
to go
again.
a further distance this time.
We'll
see what happens. I'm excited about the mirror work and just seeing, because I feel like it's a surprise or a treasure hunt. I really don't know. I don't have a lot of negative mental chatter. Not that I have zero. So I definitely could take care of the rest of that. But I really don't know what the surprise benefits are going to be. So I'm kind of excited about that.
Yeah, I don't know either. I mean, I've been doing it for 46 days or whatever. And even with 46 days, I still don't know what they're going to be. I got rid of the negative chatter. Great. But what comes next? Who knows? I have no clue. No idea whatsoever. But I figure something's going to come out of it. So stick to it. Why not?
I like what evolved for you already. And that is that you noticed, you noticed something coming up in yourself that you wanted to try. Like, I want to try giving myself an instruction to really be able to laser focus on something. I thought that was cool. And so I don't know what's going to come up for me, but I'm open to exploring it. So,
well, that's part of what makes these kinds of activities fun when we get into that fun zone. It's getting into the fun zone. That's the hard part. But once you get there and you do it by doing it gently to yourself, once you get to the fun zone, then it's like, well, what's going to come? I don't know, but it's exciting.
Yeah, it is. It is. So, I have a question.
Okay.
Speaking of exciting.
Yeah.
Any more progress on the book? I know we're getting so close.
Oh, we are. I'm down to, I assigned myself 7 stories to write. I was deciding to be pretty prolific. 7 stories. And I finished 5 of them so far.
Oh my goodness. Wow.
I'm hoping to get the last 2 done today. I do have a secret that I've been using. And it's a secret that I've used before, but I hadn't really done it a lot lately. But I decided to do it with this. And that's to use dictation software.
Yes.
Software that takes your voice and turns it into text. So I'm using what they call Dragon Naturally Speaking software, which is basically the same software that Apple uses for the Siri voice on the iPhones and iPads. And it's pretty good. It's like 98% accurate, something like that. So I set up my WordPad document and I start speaking into it. Here's my paragraph and here new paragraph and at the end of every sentence period and all that kind of stuff, putting in all the punctuation verbally. And I fly through it. I mean, one of the stories that I dictated yesterday was a story that normally would have taken me probably about a half an hour to type. And I'm a pretty quick typist. I'm usually about 100 words a minute when I'm really going. And I got it done in 10 minutes.
Wow.
Well, I was blown away.
That's fantastic.
I added 3 minutes for doing some editing to fix a couple errors, and there it was. It was just under 15 minutes to do something that would normally take a half an hour. Like, whoa, I like this.
I like that too. I really do.
Yeah.
That's a great idea. Well, I've been so shocked at the accuracy of the voice on my phone for like text messages.
Oh, yeah.
And
yeah,
even living down here in Louisiana, we have a lot of French words.
Mm-hmm.
And, like street names and things. And sometimes it just blows me away. It's like, it spelled it right. I can't believe it. Or, or even if my pronunciation might not have been perfect.
Right.
But there's a little trick that I learned because sometimes I work in all different programs, but sometimes I'll use Google Drive.
Mm-hmm.
And I have that app on my phone. And so I can use open on the computer and the phone and use the dictation through the phone and just watch it type on the screen.
Oh, okay. That's good.
I've never used Dragon, but I've heard good things about it.
Dragon's really good. I do like it a lot. I mean, it's like any other software of this kind. there are people who are going to say that none of them work well, and invariably it's because they don't take the time to enunciate their words. But
Right.
if you take the time to enunciate your words and put spaces between them, guess what? It can get it perfect.
I think it's great. And
It is great.
technology is amazing.
Oh, yeah, and it's getting better and better and better. So,
Better and better.
more
That's
things to
right.
celebrate.
Yes.
So we're
All right.
working
Well,
on
guess
we have
where
made it
are
to
today?
we made it to part 2. We yesterday
so
we made it to
excited.
part 2.
I keep saying, this book we started at, and just the cover, just the title, the #1 New York Times bestseller,
Right.
Money and the Law of Attraction. I'm always like, of course, people are going to pick this book up and want to read this book and hopefully want to come follow along with us. Money and the Law of Attraction. It's a big, big topic.
It is.
Learning to attract wealth, health, and happiness. And then we get into the book, and the entire part 1 has been really interesting and wonderful. The whole pivot thing feels monumental to me. I knew about it before. I had done it before, but just because we've been in this book, it feels like it's become just this front and center practice for me that I'm doing all the time. And I've noticed how powerful it is.
It is.
And so we're going through and we're learning about the pivoting and how important our emotions are and how important it is to take responsibility for our own stuff. And finally, we have come to part 2, which is attracting money and manifesting abundance, because I think that that's why we're all here.
Absolutely. Yeah. It can be a little bit tedious having to learn the ground rules before you actually study the good stuff. But
Right.
we did. We learned the ground rules, and now we can study the good stuff. So hooray for us.
Hooray for us. I'm really glad they put it together this way, because, like you said, ground rules, it's perfect. Now, there's a little editor's note, and if you're following with us, we're on page 59 in the paperback. And I don't know what number that page is in the hardback, if it's the same or if there's even a hardback copy. But I know you may be following along on the Kindle or on an ebook. But there's a little editor's note at the bottom of the page that says, in the sections where there is a back and forth dialogue between Jerry and Abraham, the speaker's name is repeated at the beginning of each section for clarity. So as I go through this, I will read that speaker's name just because it's important to know who's speaking. But the sections look pretty large, so I don't think it's going to be a big issue. But I'm excited about this.
Yeah. I can hardly wait to dive in, because money, I have to say, is probably not only the most popular one, it's also, in some ways, the most difficult one, because it's where we have the most resistance put up. And if you had asked me very early on what resistance I had put up where money was concerned, my reaction would have been none. I have no resistance to it at all. Send it. I'm ready.
Right.
Not realizing I actually had a whole bunch of it set up, and I'm still peeling some of it away. So it's a major topic, and I'm glad that we're doing it.
I am too. Well, you ready to dive in?
Let's go.
All right, let's go. So, attracting money and manifesting abundance. While money is not absolutely essential to your experience, to most people, money and freedom are synonymous. And since an intense awareness of your right to be free is at the very core of that which you are, it follows, therefore, that your relationship with money is one of the most important subjects of your life experience. And so it's no wonder you have such strong feelings about the subject of money. I love that they use the word relationship.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Because how good is the average relationship of the average person to money? If they really look at it honestly, not as good as it should be.
Well, when we grow up, we hear so many different opinions from different people. And somebody pointed this out to me. I don't know if they'll mention it in the book because I haven't worked through this book yet, but somebody pointed out to me maybe 15 years ago, they made a comment that when you watch movies, that the rich people are often the bad guys.
True. Yeah.
And I was like, oh, wow. And then I started paying attention to that. And it's always like the evil rich person up in their, rich lair, their castle or whatever. And when you think about it, if that's been what we've been fed from the time we're small, if money was a person and that made money an evil person, none of us, most of us anyway, hopefully don't want to be evil people, right? So it's like, of course we're going to hold it away from us.
Mm-hmm. Well, look at
if having it's going to make me the bad guy. So
well, look at the cliche. Money is the root of all evil. I mean,
right.
You basically just put yourself into a corner by adopting that one.
And what I've caught myself doing it. I hear other people do it, and that is when they talk about money or people with money, it's us and them.
Oh, yes.
And it doesn't matter how much money they have.
Nope.
Like someone else may be looking at them and thinking that they're wealthy, but then they're looking at this whole other level of wealth, and they're like, well, the rich people, rich people always say this, rich people think this, whatever, and it's them over there, those rich people over there, and if we hold ourselves apart from something like that, we'll never partake in it, right? So okay, so let's see.
There's also the perspective of we here in the United States. I mean, we have listeners around the world, so I want to focus in on the United States. We here in the United States have many people who adopt the exact viewpoint you just described. Interestingly enough, there are people who live, say, in the African sub-Sahara who would view those same people as rich people.
Yes. That's what I'm saying. It's all, it's going to change for every single person's perspective. But the idea that we just read, that money and freedom are synonymous.
Yes, very true.
Most of the time, there's this wonderful story. I don't know. I think it might have been Martha Beck. I'm not sure. It was another coach that was coaching this man that said he wanted to be able to afford to buy, he wanted a certain amount of money, a lot of money. And she asked him, what would you do if you had, that much money? And he said he would buy a Ferrari. And she said, what is the, what would having a Ferrari give you? And he said, the feeling of freedom.
Mm.
And, she probably dug down with more questions until she got to freedom. But I've noticed that there are a couple of things that you'll always get to when you're digging down, and it's peace and freedom.
Mm-hmm.
Are two of the main things that people want.
Yeah.
Right? They want peace, they want freedom, they want relief, they want happiness.
Right.
And those are really the things that we make all these strategies about. Well, if I had X amount of money, if I had more money, and freedom is really part of that, because the society that we live in requires money most of the time to do anything. And when we don't have the ability to spend that money to do whatever it is we want to do, we feel trapped. We don't feel free. Now, the cool thing about that one story, I have to tell the punchline, so to speak.
Oh, okay.
Is that she asked him, well, what could you do right now to feel free? And the two things that stand out that I remember, one of them, he said he could not wear underwear.
Okay.
And the other one, he said, I think, finger painting with his small child.
Oh, that's nice.
And so she said, okay, I want you to do those things. Like this week, the next couple of weeks, do those things. I want you to really feel freedom. And he ended up during that time getting the bid on a job that he wasn't even really qualified for. It was so above his head and above his company's scale. And it brought in like a ton of money.
No kidding.
And he decided that he didn't really need the red Ferrari anymore.
Wow. Fantastic. That is great. Okay. What a good manifest. I wish I had that one for the book.
Yeah, really. It was a cool story.
Yeah.
And I love the way that's the main thing we need to always remember, is that there's always, we think we need certain things. It's like we've talked about this probably dozens of times, but the whole, I need to win my ex back.
Yes.
Because I need to be happy. And it's like, no, it's like what you really want is just the happiness that you experienced in some moments.
Right.
It's always something that's underneath that strategy that we're creating that we think we need to have. So, all right, let's move on. Although some people have discovered the freedom of allowing large amounts of money to flow through their experiences, it is more often the case that because you are experiencing far less money than you need or desire, most of you are not feeling free. It is our intention here to clearly explain why this financial disparity exists so that you can begin to allow the abundance that you want and deserve into your experience. For as you read these words, and as you begin to resonate with these law-based truths, you will align your desire with the abundance of your world, and the evidence of your newfound alignment will soon become apparent to you and to others who observe you. Well, I really like that.
Yeah, sign me up.
The evidence of your newfound alignment will soon become apparent to you and to others who observe you.
Mm-hmm.
Awesome. So whether you are one who has been working to achieve financial abundance for many years, or you are a youngster just starting down that path, the journey to financial well-being does not have to be a long one from where you are. And it does not require large amounts of time or physical effort, for we're going to explain to you in simple and easy to understand terms how to utilize the leverage of energy that is available to you. We want to show you the absolute correlation between the thoughts you have been thinking about money, the way you feel when you think those thoughts, and the money that flows into your experience. When you are able to consciously make that correlation and you decide to deliberately direct your thoughts accordingly, you will access the power of the universe, and you will then see how time and physical effort are rather irrelevant to your financial success.
That's quite a powerful statement, that last one.
Yeah, right? I was just going to say, what do you think about that, Walt?
I think it's true.
Access the power of the universe. That right there grabbed me.
Yeah, well, earlier on you said leverage of energy. I said, ooh.
Yeah.
I like that.
And you will then see how time and physical effort are rather irrelevant to your financial success.
Yeah. And
I would be very happy for time and physical effort to be irrelevant.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. And truly, I think they are irrelevant. I think probably the most important takeaway from that is recognizing that physical effort and time alone are going to be, if they're the only tools you're using, you're basically setting yourself a very rough road to hoe, as the old phrase is. You're setting yourself a very, very difficult task. And it's not impossible to get there. There are people who do get there just by putting in, incredible amounts of time and incredible amounts of physical effort, but it's the hard way to go. What they're saying here is it doesn't have to be that hard. It can be actually a lot easier.
We always hear this cliche that you have to work hard to make a lot of money.
Right.
Work hard to be successful. And, we all know people that if working hard was the key, they would be bazillionaires because they work so hard. I know plenty of people. My mother, may she rest in peace, she was the hardest working person, and she never was able to accumulate any amount of wealth. And so if it was her hard work, she definitely would have been in a different financial situation. And so I'm glad that it's not connected to how hard we work or how much, it says time, how much time we put in. Because there are many people who work very, very long hours.
Oh, yes.
And still can't make it happen. So,
I was one of those for a long time.
Yeah.
Yeah. I do have one question, though. How many zeros are there in a bazillion?
It's a little bit smaller than a Google.
I see. Okay. Well, then we'll make sure that it's not fully a Googleplex, but it's close.
So we begin with the simple premise of your universe and of your world. You get what you think about. Often people say to us, that can't be true because I have wanted and thought about more money for as long as I can remember, but I continue to struggle with not enough money. And what we then tell them is the most important thing for you to understand if you want to improve your financial situation. The subject of money is really two subjects. One, money, plenty of money, the feeling of freedom and ease that plenty of money can provide. And two, absence of money, not nearly enough money, the feeling of fear and disappointment that the thought of absence of money induces.
You know, the first time I read that, I said, yeah, of course, let's move on. And I gave it no further thought. But after struggling a few times trying to apply what they later on teach us, I ended up going back to that and recognizing that I spent a lot more time in 2 than I did in 1, and wondering, why the hell did I do that? But that is it right there. I mean, it's not like I do it deliberately. It's not like I wake up in the morning and say, you know what, I'm going to focus on the absence of money today.
No, we don't do it deliberately. It just, we go out and get the mail and there's a bill in there we weren't expecting or whatever. And we say, oh, no, we need to say what Mike Dooley used to say. Oh, good thing we're rich.
That's right. But that's a perfect example. There are so many things that happen during our days that lead us almost without thought in most cases, actually without thought in most cases, to express something that is basically translated to, I don't have money, or I lack money, or there's an absence of money. And we just let them slide by. In fact, in many cases, we consider them to be humorous and fun.
Exactly. That's the thing that I was talking to someone about this yesterday. Habits of thought, though, like mental habits, and how there's an actual physical, action going on in our brain with those neural connections firing. And it gets to be very, very easy to fall into the same mental habits. So if every time we see something, we turn on the television or we get on the computer and we see someone advertising a Hawaiian vacation or a trip around the world or a fancy car or something that we don't have the money for, it's very easy to fall into those mental habits of, well, yeah, that I can't have that.
Yeah.
Because there's not enough.
What's the first thing that happens in me? I feel a little cringe inside when I see something like that. And I literally have to take my time to consciously say to myself, no, calm down. That's not the way your future is unfolding, and basically reverse the message that I just gave myself.
I'm sure they're going to touch on this as well further, but it reminds me of another mental habit that sounds positive, but can be a little tricky. And that's the idea of it's not really a mantra or an affirmation, but it's closer to an affirmation. People will say things like, well, the money always comes. There's always, the money always comes just in time.
In time, yes.
Or we always have just enough. There will be just, right? And it's like this story. It's sort of a story of lack that's kind of painted up to look better, right? It's like.
I remember just before we moved from Virginia back to Connecticut, we were having conversations about how to make it work financially because there really wasn't much money to work with. And even after we got back, there was even less because we just spent all the money on the move. And we were planning out, okay, so how can we get by? How can we get by? And I remember just kind of shrieking out, I am so sick of getting by.
Exactly. And it's like that story, I've heard people say, I probably said it myself. It's like, I'm not going to worry about this. Somehow we always make it. And I don't want somehow I always make it to be my money story.
Neither do I.
About the whole idea of relationship, and if money was a person, it's like, so how's your marriage going? Well, somehow we always
we just get by, right? Boy, doesn't that sound exciting?
Yeah, no. All right, so I love what you said that you went back. We'll read that again. It's in italics. The subject of money is really two subjects. One, money, plenty of money, the feeling of freedom and ease that plenty of money can provide. And two, absence of money, not nearly enough money, the feeling of fear and disappointment that the thought of absence of money induces. In
fact, when you reread that first part, money, plenty of money, the feeling of freedom and ease that plenty of money can provide, I wanted that to keep going.
Right, I know. Me too. I was like, it needs to be like a whole page of that.
Exactly.
Yes, funny.
Like I was just getting into it and you stopped. Oh no.
we'll have to do a revised edition of this and make that paragraph longer. Often people assume that because they're speaking the words, I want more money, they're speaking positively about money. But when you're speaking of money or anything, and you're feeling fear or discomfort as you speak, you're not speaking of the subject of money, but instead you're speaking of the subject of not enough money.
Mm-hmm.
And the difference is very important because the first statement brings money and the second holds it away.
True. Personal experience.
It is of value for you to become aware of how you are really thinking and, more important, feeling about money. And you just mentioned that while you said when that happens, the little cringe inside.
Oh, so, yeah.
Right? It's how we're feeling. If you're thinking or saying things like, oh, that's a very beautiful thing, but I cannot afford it, you are not in a vibrational position to allow in the abundance you desire. The feeling of disappointment that is present as you acknowledge that you cannot afford it is your indicator that the balance of your thought is pointed more toward the lack of your desire than toward the desire itself. The negative emotion that you feel as you acknowledge that you cannot afford something that you want is one way of understanding the balance of your thoughts. And the amount of abundance that you're actually experiencing is another way of knowing. Now, I know that's hard to take sometimes for people, but I've said it to myself and I've said it to clients. It's like, you really want to know what you're vibrating and what you're thinking and what you're believing, and just look around.
Mm-hmm. At your own experience.
Just look at where you're sitting. Look at what's going on. Look at your bank account, whatever. That's it. It's the indicator.
It's very clear cut.
Yeah.
It really is. I mean, there's no running away from it. It's just there.
No, it just look around at what's going on. Many people continue to perpetuate the experience of not enough in their lives simply because they do not think beyond the reality of what they are actually experiencing. In other words, if they are experiencing the shortage of money and are aware of it and speak of it often, they hold themselves in that chronic position. And so many people protest when we explain to them the power of telling the story of their finances as they want it to be rather than as it is, because they believe that they should be factual about what is happening. But we want you to understand that if you continue to look at what is and speak of what is, you will not find the improvement that you desire. You may see a parade of changing faces and places, but your life experience will essentially show no improvement. If you want to affect substantial change in your life experience, you have to offer substantially different vibrations, which means you must think thoughts that feel different as you think them.
All right. So during that thing, I affirmed at least 4 times, I believe, all the different ways that, yep, I do that lack thing. Yep, I do that lack thing. I do that. Yep, that's me. Sure, I do that. Yep, volunteer right here. So having done all that, now I want to reverse it.
Right. And it says, you said that lack thing, and the next subtitle says, lackful action doesn't pay off.
No kidding.
So this is Jerry speaking. Many years ago, I owned a motel near El Paso, Texas, and H.L. Hunt, who at that time was one of the wealthiest men in the United States, one of the multi-billionaires, called me. He had purchased Ojo Caliente, a small resort on the Rio Grande that was financially failing, and he had heard that I might have some useful information to help him turn it around. As we were visiting in my little coffee shop, I had a difficult time focusing on our conversation because I just couldn't understand why a man that wealthy would still be discontent and looking for a way of making more money. I wondered why he didn't just sell the place at whatever price and go on about his life enjoying the money he had already accumulated. I have another friend who's in the multi-billionaire class. We were in Rio de Janeiro, Brazil, walking on the beach, and he was talking about some business problems he was having. And it really struck me that that man, so wealthy, would have any kind of troubles. But what I've learned from you, Abraham, and I've learned a lot from you, is that our true success in life is not about how much money we have or about having of things, right?
And before you give Abraham's answer, I want to point out that H.L. Hunt, within a very short time, lost a large portion of his fortune after that event.
Oh, wow.
He tried to speculate in the silver market and almost wiped out his family fortune.
Oh, goodness.
Yeah.
Well, I don't think Jerry knew Abraham yet then, right? To give him some different advice.
It was actually, I think, just about the time that Jerry met Abraham that Hunt did that. I don't remember the exact sequence, but it was around the same time. Yeah.
So the subtitle before Abraham's answer says, first, I'll find my vibrational balance. Abraham says, the things that you have and the things that you do are all meant to enhance your state of being. In other words, it's all about how you feel. And how you feel is all about coming into alignment with who you really are. When you tend to your alignment first, then the things you gather and the actions you perform only enhance your good feeling state of being. But if you do not find that vibrational balance first and attempt to make yourself feel better by bringing more things into your experience or participating in more activities in order to try to make yourself feel better, you just get further out of balance. Well, now that's really interesting. I mean, we talk about that a lot. Well, alignment first, how important it is, alignment first. I think it's interesting that they bring up, but if you do not find that vibrational balance first and attempt to make yourself feel better by bringing more things into your experience or participating in more activities in order to try to make yourself feel better, you just get further out of balance. It reminds me of when people say that something, they're feeling bad, so they need retail therapy.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
It's like, it's not going to really help to make us feel better, like just going and shopping, bringing more things into our experience or participating. We have to get that alignment first.
And that alignment is important, not just where money is concerned. It's important with everything. I'm still not completely in the habit I want to be in. The habit I want to be in is where I do the segment intending throughout my day. And what I actually end up doing is maybe once during the day I'll do it, which is not segment intending at all. Segment intending is where you divide your day up into segments, and as you're going to do task X or activity Y, before you do it, you get yourself into vibrational alignment, you do it, and then when you're ready to go on to the next task or the next thing that you're going to do before you do it, you get yourself in vibrational alignment. I do that maybe once, and then I give up on it, and I forget.
I don't remember the book. I think that the segment intending, was it in their very first book?
I think so, yeah, at the end of it.
And I remember learning it and really doing well with it for a while. And when I say a while, I mean, like, I don't know, maybe weeks or months. I mean, I really got into it where everything was a segment, and I would remember to make it a segment, like I'd be going in to make a phone call. Okay. And I'd make an intention for that segment. And then I'd get off the phone and I'd go to my next task, and I would make an intention for the segment. And it's a really powerful, I don't know how I got away from it. But what I notice now is that with doing the pivoting that I've been doing, it's kind of similar.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know how many methods I could use all at once, But I hear you. I'm right there with you, because that way we stay in alignment.
Yeah. I mean, I wonder, like, you said you weren't sure how you got out of it. I want to know how you got into it. That's what I want to know. How did you actually manage to do it continuously for months at a time? I'm impressed.
Well, at the time I was teaching a class, and I think that I kind of wove it in and started teaching it to other people. And that's one of the ways that that's why I'm happy we're doing this book.
Yeah.
Because I stayed in it, because I was teaching it. And that might be how I got into it. It's been a long time. I can't remember. But it's kind of like staying in alignment. It's like driving a car on the road. I mean, you can take your hands off the wheel and go straight if your tires are aligned right for a little while. But, the road's going to curve, and you have to make sure your car stays on the road. And it's that consistent action again of making sure. And so it's a habit. I want to be there too.
When you were doing it, were you doing it consciously, or was it was so habitual that you're doing it almost unconsciously?
No, I got pretty conscious about it because I learned about it and I thought, oh, this is awesome.
Oh, that's good. That's really good.
And so I just got, it was a habit. It became a habit to kind of check in and determine what this segment would be. I kind of mentally would determine the beginning and ending of the segment. You know, like if I was sitting down to eat lunch, it would be like, okay, this segment of time where I'm going to be eating lunch, I would set an intention for it. And then when I was done with that, it would be time to create a new segment.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't do it all day, every day, but I did it a heck of a lot more than I do it now. I mean, I would say I probably set 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 segments a day.
Oh, wow. That's great. That's really good. Okay. Well, you've already taken on the task of doing mirror work because you were kind of
yeah, that's
leaning on what
my
I'm
thing
doing.
for right now.
So
mirror work and pivoting.
So I'm going to, in a sense, respond and, you know, I'm playing the other side of the tennis court, right? So I'm going to say, I'm going to improve the number of times that I do my segment intending every day. And I'm not asking for perfection. I know perfection, that's just setting myself up for failure. So I'm just going to look for improvement. If I can be doing it like more than once a day, that's improvement. And then once I'm doing that, I'm going to do it for more than twice a day and then more than 3 times a day until I finally am doing it all day long. So that I'm declaring it here on the air.
Awesome. You know what I think really helped me the most with it is sort of mentally taking a note or making a note of the beginning and ending of something.
Yes.
You know, like when you sit down to like say edit the book, it's like, okay, I'm going to sit down now and edit the book, and being conscious of I'm starting now, I'm going to work for an hour, so I'm ending, and when you're done with the task. So it's kind of like it wraps up whatever you're doing in a segment.
I think I also have to give myself a little credit that I am not giving myself. Like, for instance, when I'm doing the podcast, every day I make it a point to start the podcast with, you know, my jovial, happy welcome to LOA today. And that's part of my own routine for getting myself back into vibrational alignment. So I do that every day without thinking about it, but I need to give myself credit for that. Okay, so I actually have been doing it at least twice a day during the week.
Right, and that's a segment. And what's so beautiful about it, I think, what makes it so powerful, the segment intending exercise, is that we're not making an intention. Now, I do make an intention for today. I've talked about this before, right? I wake up and the first thing in my mind, even before my eyes open, there's how do I want to feel today? What do I want today to be like? What do I want to accomplish today? And I kind of answer those questions for myself. But the great thing about segment intending is we're not making an intention on how we want to feel for an entire day. It's just this next little bit of time.
That's right. That's right. Yeah, we're not responsible for the whole day, just this moment.
Yeah. Okay, so let's keep going here because this is going to get good here. Abraham is saying we're not guiding you away from accumulating things or from taking action, because all of that is an essential part of your physical experience. In other words, you intended the wonderful experience of exploring the details of your physical world in order to help you to personally determine your own joyous growth and expansion. But when you try to move forward from an imbalanced footing, it is always uncomfortable. If you will begin by identifying how you want to feel or be, and let your inspiration to accumulate or to do come from that centered place, then not only will you maintain your balance, but you will now enjoy the things you gather and the things that you do.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, this is good. Among other things, it addresses the point raised earlier. The point raised earlier is that you don't have to focus strictly on time and hard work in order to achieve success. You actually want to do it with your thoughts. But simultaneously, they're saying, we're not saying you should stop doing things or taking actions or accumulating things. We're not saying that at all. They're saying that's still an essential part of the overall physical experience. That's what they say here, which means it's both. They aren't mutually exclusive one from the other. It's not like your thoughts have to be the only thing that you do or that your actions have to be the only thing you do. You can combine them And they can combine together in a variety of different ways. In certain cases, you're going to be doing more of the thinking type attraction and less of the activity. In other cases, you're going to do more of the activity, usually an inspired activity, mainly because it's fun, because you enjoy it, because you want to do it. Like us doing the podcast. Nobody drags me to do this podcast every day. I'm signing up for it. I want it because it's fun. I enjoy it.
Remember before in section 1 where it talked about breaking up in a relationship?
Yeah.
And how you should, the best way to separate or to break up in a relationship is to make sure that you're in alignment first, and then and they made the point. It's like, if you break up and you're not in alignment, you're not going to be any happier. You're just going to go on and find some other thing to make you miserable.
That's right.
But it reminds me of this. It's like they're not telling us that we shouldn't accumulate things. They're not telling us that we shouldn't take any kind of action. They just want us to be aligned first.
Right.
So it says most people do most of their wanting from a place of lack. We could just talk about that one sentence. Most people do most of their wanting from a place of lack.
I really don't want to because I'm afraid I'm going to program it back into myself. But yes, you're right. We could talk about that forever.
They want things, in many cases, simply because they do not have them. So the having of them does not really satisfy anything deep within them because there's always something else they do not have. Yes.
Yes.
So, and so it becomes a never-ending struggle to try to bring one more thing that still will not be satisfying into their experience because I don't have this. I want it. And they really think that getting it will fill the void. But that defies law.
It also defies logic and experience. It's like saying, if I meet the right person who fills in my gaps, I will have a fulfilled life. And how many people meet the person who they just feel like fill all the gaps, and then the relationship's starting to fall apart a couple years later?
Because they get more gaps.
Well, more importantly, it's not up to the other person to fill the gaps.
That's right.
It's not their duty to do that. We're the ones who are supposed to fill in the gaps. But no, we want the other person to fill in the gaps for us.
Yeah, I think we were talking about this earlier, that I said when I first fell in love with my spouse that I kept wanting to send him a message saying, "You make me so happy." And I changed it. And I said, "I feel so happy when I'm with you."
Different message.
Because I'm always conscious of that. It's like, I'm not depending on someone else to make me happy. That's my job.
It's not only my job, it's my power.
I'm not doing my job.
I'm the one who has the power to do that, to make myself happy. No one else has the power to make me happy. I'm the only one who has it. That's a mind-blowing concept, but it is true. We experience, like you say, falling in love. And when you fall in love, it feels like the other person is making us happy. No, it's not. It's not the other person. It's us. We're the ones who are doing it. We're letting ourselves feel happy, but we're saying it's them who are doing it. No, they're not doing it. We're doing it.
I love you say we're letting ourselves. We're allowing it in.
Yeah, we are.
That's the thing is to recognize that. It's so empowering.
It is. Oh.
That's the place of power where it's up to me, where I have the power to make myself happy. I don't have to depend on someone else. Thank goodness.
Thank goodness.
Then I wouldn't have, the power. So.
And talk about relief. The relief that comes from understanding that is tremendous.
Yeah.
Because now you don't depend on somebody else to make you happy. Now you always have the power so you can make yourself happy whenever you want to. Oh, thank goodness.
So this next part is in italics. It says any action that is taken from a place of lack is always counterproductive. And it always leads to more of a feeling of lack. The void that these people are feeling cannot be filled with things or satisfied with action because the feeling of void is about the vibrational discord between their desires and their chronic habits of thought. Offering better feeling thoughts, telling a different story, looking for positive aspects, pivoting to the subject of what you really do want, looking for positive what ifs. That is how you fill that void. And when you do, a most interesting thing will occur in your experience. The things you have wanted will begin to flood into your experience. But these things you've been wanting will flood in not to fill your void, because that void no longer exists. They flow in because your void no longer exists.
Big difference.
Certainly, you will gather many magnificent things into your experience. Our message is not for you to stop wanting, having, or doing. Our message is for you to want and accumulate and do from your place of feeling good.
So this is important stuff here. And I love the fact that in that second to last paragraph, they begin it by saying, offering better feeling thoughts, telling a different story, looking for positive aspects, pivoting to the subject of what you really do want, looking for positive what ifs. That is how you fill that void. So the first thought that goes to my mind is,
excited reading that.
Oh my goodness.
Like, this is the recipe, folks.
This is it. Here it is. Step 1, pour in a cup of flour.
Right?
This is it. Okay. Well, then that means we just got to start telling better financial stories to ourselves and to each other.
And for me, and I don't want everyone to get tired of hearing me say this, but goodness, the pivoting. I know we've got a lot of things here.
Yes.
Offering better feeling thoughts, telling a different story, looking for positive aspects, pivoting to the subject of what you really do want.
Yes.
Instead of what you don't want. And the thing that was the most powerful to me about that pivot, it didn't have to do with money, but it could. It had with me, it was because when we started learning really and talking a lot about the pivoting was that week that I was sick. Or trying to get sick. I kept fighting a sore throat.
Trying to get sick. I love that. That's beautifully phrased.
It kept happening. And so I would say, I don't want to feel sick. I want to feel well. And then I would do the next step and ask myself, why do I want to feel well? And it was so tempting. The default answer was because I don't want to be sick.
Yes, right.
And to keep recognizing consistently, bringing myself back to, it's the same way. It's why do you want more money? Because I don't want to be poor, right? Why do you want wealth? Because I don't want to lack things. I don't want to live in poverty. Well, when we say things like that, we're still pointing back and putting the focus on that number 2 of not enough money.
That's right.
Not enough wellness. And I recognized that every time I had that thought, I would force myself to create a list of why I really did want to feel better. Because when I feel better, I enjoy everything more, because my energy level is higher, because I get more done, because I feel happier, because I'm not laying in bed, feeling bad. I can come in here and do the podcast and be excited because my voice is healthy. And, I would go on and on. And, I never did get sick.
That's right.
I didn't. And what was funny was that it was a long struggle with it where I kept waking up with that sore throat, or in the day I would feel it and I would do this pivot. And then one day I realized, I'm completely well. And I haven't even thought about it for like 4 or 5 days. My throat hasn't hurt and I don't have a fever. I mean, none of the symptoms of a cold, it never happened. And it was amazing. And if I can do that with a cold, I can certainly do it with anything else.
Absolutely.
So and the pivot to me was the PowerPoint, but all of these things in this list.
Well, I was writing the list down as you were talking about pivoting, because I wanted to reinforce for myself there are really 4 things that they've identified here that, in their words, you use to fill the void. They are better feeling thoughts, telling a different story, pivoting to the subject of what I do want, and looking for positive what ifs.
And looking for positive aspects. So there's 5 in there.
Does it say positive aspects? Oh, you're right.
Yep.
I missed positive aspects. That one's number 3. Okay. So I'll call that one 2A.
And then my favorite sentence in this whole paragraph, oh my goodness. It's like, these things you have wanted will begin to flood into your experience, not to fill your void, but because the void no longer exists.
Because the void no longer exists. Yes.
That's amazing.
It is amazing on the one hand. On another hand, theoretically, it makes total sense.
It does, because when we talk about lack, that's the void. As soon as we're focused on the positive aspects and we're focused on why we want what we want and we're telling that better story, that void goes away.
I like to remember what physicists like to say, that nature abhors a vacuum. Well, a vacuum is a void. And if nature abhors a vacuum, what does that mean? Well, nature will always try to find some way to fill in that vacuum. And it'll do it instantly. There's no delay. It's not like, oh, there's a vacuum over there. I think I'll send something over there. No, it's instantaneous. So really the question isn't whether or not the void is going to get filled. The real question is, what's it going to get filled with?
Yeah, that's the inclusive universe again, right?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. And that's why we trip up, because we let it be filled with, there's not enough money. I can't afford that. I don't know how I'm going to be able to pay the rent. Those are all the kinds of things that we fill that void with negatively. All they're saying is change what you're filling the void with. Line it up so that the positives go in there. And when they do, all of a sudden, boom, everything flows in. So let's
Fantastic. Can you believe how fast this hour went?
I know. It just flies by. Well, I know how fast it flew by because, I started late. And when I started late, I wasn't paying any attention to the time. And now that we're near the end, I wasn't paying any attention to the time there either. So that's how I know the time was flying by. I was too involved to pay attention to the time. That's a good thing. But before we leave, I do want to take a couple minutes. We do have a couple minutes left. I do want to take a couple minutes to reinforce these points, because these points to me are it. And I hope we continue to talk about them in greater detail as we continue to go forward in the book. Better feeling thoughts. Telling a different story, looking for positive aspects, pivoting to the subject of what I do want, looking for positive what ifs. That's the recipe.
Yep.
That's it right there. I am now wanting more than anything else to make those 5 steps my daily life.
I just took a highlighter and highlighted the last words of that sentence. It says, that is how you feel the void.
That's right. Yeah. There it is.
Yeah. And these 5 things that we've mentioned, they can become our habit of thought.
Mm-hmm.
They can become the default if we'll work towards that end.
In fact, they can also become our normal way of thinking.
Yeah. I want them to be my default thoughts. I want them to be what I automatically do.
Yeah.
It's sort of like anybody that drives a car will remember back when they didn't drive a car and they were learning to drive a car.
Mm-hmm.
And how focused you had to be on everything, right? It's like, oh my gosh, you couldn't reach down and turn the radio on because, I got to keep my eyes on the road and my hands on the wheel. And, all these things we have to do at once, especially if you learn how to drive a standard, right? It's like you've got both feet and both hands are all, and it trying to coordinate it. And then at some point you just hop in the car and drive and you don't think about any of those things and you do it automatically. That's the way I want these 5 things to become in my life, is that I just do them automatically. Yeah.
Well, I want both. I want it automatic and I want it conscious. I want both. I don't want to have just one or the other. I want all of it.
Want my whole
I want it all.
I want my thinking processes to always be conscious.
Yeah. Yeah, me too. Well, this is good. I'm glad we finally got into part 2. Obviously, this is going to be the good part of the book, so I can hardly wait for tomorrow, which I'm glad to say you're going to be a part of, because you're going to be doing a 3rd show this week. So thank you very much for filling in for Joel.
I will be back tomorrow. I'm excited about that too.
I'm really excited. Before we leave, I want to give people a chance to know how they reach out to you, because you're an excellent coach. If they're looking for a little private counseling, how do they reach you?
They can find me online at cindychavez.com. It's CINDIECHAVEZ.com. And you can find me on Twitter and Facebook under those same names, and just reach out however you'd like to and just reach out and say hello.
Excellent. Cindy, been a pleasure. Let's do it again tomorrow.
Wonderful. See you tomorrow.
We'll see you all next time here on LOA Today. Goodbye, everybody.
Bye, everyone.